was never involved in sports. Strangely enough. I had no time for sport ever since I've known myself. It was always the stage concerts, what we call concert in those days, and acting, which was acting, and music and song and dance. Then, of course, the performance. But my involvement was that I had, they say, the gift of the gab. Is that what you call it when you can speak? And I was sent by the schoolmaster, who didn't think much of me as a scholar at all, but was sent always to organize the excursions, because it was an excursion for Arima Boys RC to go to Aruca or Tagarigua or even Chaguanas to do a cricket or football competition.
You did go to Arima Boys RC?
Yeah, I did go. So I was sent by the man called A.E. Mitchell, who was then headmaster, to go to the railway station in Port of Spain and arrange for a fee for a whole carriage or part thereof for the school to go. And when I did that, he found out, when I told him how much it was, and we got the money and we paid, and the day in question, he saw more people, more students than those paid in the railway station on the train. And he told me what happened. I said, Mr. Mitchell, I make a deal for the whole carriage. He says, and why you tell me? I said, well, I know you would object to it, but look at them. Big John and them can't afford that. So let's bring them on.
So you were negotiating?
Negotiated. And then he would send me down into Port of Spain to various stores like Fogarty's and Stevens, and those were the stores that carried a line of sports material. There was not a sports and game, there's not a sports store per se then. And I would go to the police headquarters and talk to people like those days Sergeant Barnes, who became assistant commissioner or commissioner of police, and the Fortunés. All these were guys from Arima and the Crevel, and incidentally Maxwell, whose little sister was the first wife of Paul Castellio, Clara Miss Maxwell. She got her doctorate in the United States. Where after they got married and went there, that was another part of Paul's life where he couldn't handle America and left because his wife would want him to go to the same university and study. But he preferred to come back to Trinidad where he had his niche. And I would go to these police officers because it was said then that the gentlemen of the police force all came from Arima, the Fortunate, the Barnes, and a number of others. Amos Mitchell.
How old were you at this time?
I must have been 14. But I would go down to these people, and they would get the police division to contribute, use bats and balls and pads and stuff, so I could support the Arima Boys RC school with used but good equipment. And so it is in that context that I would come down. I remember him telling me, listen, I'm glad you come to Aruba, but you have to lend us your pads because we are no pads here. And we would, the camaraderie was so good that even we were playing against you, when we were batting, we would lend you our pads. When we weren't batting, we would lend them our pads.
So is it at that age you developed your negotiating and salesman skills so that you moved into sales and radio?
I developed that right there in the Arima Boys RC school, because it was then I realized that, try as I may, I couldn't compete with the intelligent hierarchy of the Arima Boys RC school. And I decided that was not to be a duck-out position for me. I had to fend my way with whatever ability in my one-syllable words, incorrectly or correctly, and move completely into a state where I was satisfied that I was contributing and getting response for every effort I made.
Okay. You had to be in control.
I had to be in control. I remember getting a part in a play in Arima where when the schoolmaster saw that I was getting a part, he says, no, not him. He won't remember his lines. And I was so ashamed, and I told my mother I was in it, and I spoke to a school teacher who is now dead, also from Arima, Adonis Taylor, and he said, don't worry, I'll make you a buster. I said, what's that? He said, a buster. He said, a comedian. I said, you mean a jokey fella? He said, yes, you must fail everything I put you on. You have to recite, but recite bad. And when they refuse you, say, give me a chance, then sing. And when they refuse you from singing, start a dance. And you have 5 minutes in which to do all that, because it's intermission. And I got on stage, and as fate would make it, I fell on stage, and the uproar started. And everything that happened became a laugh, until the schoolmaster was offended and came outside and said, get that jackass off the stage. And I put the thumbs up, of course, which she didn't know until after. And from that day on, I've been on stage and haven't gotten off yet.
All right. You got into broadcasting. You spoke about working at TBC, Trinidad Broadcasting Company.
Well,
yes.
Well, listen. That's not. It didn't happen that way. It happened miraculously. I went to work on the base, the American base, auxiliary military police, and I was put on guard at the at the radio station, and I started mucking around and getting involved with guys and stuff like that, peeping and stuff, leaving my post undone, of course. And one day one of the guys were out there, and he was in a very foul mood, and I said, what's wrong? He says, I have a date with my girlfriend to take her to the Globe Cinema, and they gave me the duty. I said, well, why can't you go? He says, I got the duty. He said, and I asked guys to hold on for me, and they wouldn't. I said, well, how can I do it? He said, I'll show you how to break the station. He said, but you won't sound like me. I said, you say it again, and I mimicked. And he was from the south.
Okay.
And I went on as the station WVDI and AM Forces Radio Service in Trinidad. The correct time is 9 o'clock. The following program is transcribed. The duty announcer discovered me after a few tries, found me there, and I got into trouble. But then the people in the base said, the guy got talent. Sammy Davis Jr. was the toast of the tongue in those days. Mm-hmm. He had just joined the Rat Pack.
Right, yeah.
And so I sort of mirrored him because of the whites that were on the base. There were no blacks then. It was strictly whites. And they appealed to me, and Jeffrey Holder was then doing a program called Piano Ramblings. And they wanted a program with local input. So I got in, and I began to present stars like Irma Moore, Nightingale of the East from Arima, Cicely Ford, Sonny Chinaliong, and a number of others. In that time, the hierarchy of the entertainment system in Trinidad and Tobago.
And that was in the 50s?
Yeah, 46.
46?
46.
Okay, that's after the war.
Yes, that's my first thing was August 1946. And Harry Truman, president of America, paid a special a visit to Trinidad with his daughter, Margaret, and we entertained them, and I hired Lord Kitchener and a number of other top lion on radio and thing, and gave Melody a peep-in, which annoyed all the other senior Calypsonians. But I picked him the night before because it was races in Arima in August, you see. And I heard him coming up the road with a rhythm that was, I couldn't resist. And then I recognized Spoiler because Spoiler was light-skinned and fair. We had no lights in Arima in those days. And I stopped and I went on, and Melody gave me a knock with one hand and nearly tumbled me over. And Spoiler tell him, no, that's a fella, go and sing on the bass with tomorrow. Don't hit him. He said, I come to Arima already, and a man make me take 9 months jail for nothing, because his mother lived in Arima, and he came there and got into some confusion with a fella. If you're in Arima, you will know him well, who they used to say in Arima, he's from Lepika. If he did something and the police come, he say, okay, boss, I'll tell you everything. And so that got him into trouble. But he was singing that rhythm, Ashime Glucken, Glucken diminish, Hitler say to send back the soldiers. And I thought this was the end of the war, and he singing that Hitler song, the president would love it. So I include him on my entourage without getting approval for money or anything, but the guys were so impressed that I got paid for him to perform.
Let's talk about when you started working in formal radio.
So when I came to town, they didn't want me.
They didn't want you?
They didn't want me. The guy said, this is a British organization, and I understand you're from the Americans. And so they didn't want you. Plus that, neither did I have the qualification.
Yeah.
So I stuck around. I call it my city strides. I began emceeing, and I was fortunate to get in nearly all the things, the Normandy Hotel, the Tavern on the Green, which was then, the Bel Air Hotel on a Sunday night, and the Lotus Restaurant, which was the place where Sparrow made his leap, that was his springboard. Sam Ghani heard me and gave me a job as sales rep, assistant to Sam Ghani. And then I went out and sold every program, including myself. And then I got on the air with a program called Saturday Night Dance Party, the music of Ray Sylvester coming live from the Lotus Restaurant in downtown Port of Spain. That was the shoot-off.
Where exactly was the Lotus Restaurant there?
At the corner of Queen and Henry Street. If you were in that age group, you would know upstairs Black Cat Bar. It was so strange that we were so well integrated that one of the worst and most rowdiest rum shop was downstairs, and the most sedate and selected entertainment center was upstairs. And it had no conflict.
So you got into radio doing these local programs, and how did you get into television?
Well, when television came, a number of people just before, in 61, took courses and went to America, and not only got courses, but came back with suits of shades that would be suited to television. And I was just there looking on, and the man who was in charge of television then, he was then in charge of the Silver Network, which was the second station of Radio Trinidad, which was really Fusion. And I was sales for him. And having sold it so well, he decided to take me over to sell. And I told him, if I'm not going in front of the camera, leave me in Radio Trinidad. And he finally decided. He wanted me so badly. He said yes, but he didn't mean it. And when I was there for a few months, I said, when do I go before the camera? He says, you're not going. I says, well, I'm leaving. He says, you can't do that, because there was only one advertising agency in Trinidad who had just about five clients. And I was doing Charlotte Street, Henry Street, the Syrian stores, the Chinese shop, the whole bit, and bringing in other people into television, including Kapolani, who never wanted to go in television. So he said he would keep me, and then he gave me a program called Variety, once a week. First variety program, Sparrow, Ray Sylvester Orchestra, the same girl that I spoke about, a girl called Barbara Choi, originally from Guyana, and we were doing this program. Everything was fine until it decided it couldn't pay anymore. And he said, well, you're off the air. And I said, well, again, I'm resigning. He said, but where are you going? I said, because I want to stay on the air. He said, well, let me tell you, you have to prove yourself. And how are you going to sell it when Variety? I said, I'll give you an idea of a program that will sell itself. I want the worst day in the service, the worst time on the air, and I'll show you how. I'll get a program that will be a talent contest, and I'll get sponsors, and you will promote them as a contra deal on times that we wouldn't have anything to sell on. And there was the birth of Scouting for Talent.